He secretly funded her dreams, she never knew. Part 1: The Girl Who Dreamed Too Big. The city of Hangzhou never truly slept. Even past midnight, neon lights reflected across the river like scattered stars, and scooters buzzed through narrow streets carrying delivery drivers chasing their last orders of the night. But inside a small apartment above a convenience store, everything was quiet. Except for the scratching sound of a pencil. Maya Chen sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by sketches. Crumpled papers filled the corners of the room, each one a failed attempt at perfection. Her mother had fallen asleep hours ago after finishing a long shift at the hospital cafeteria. But Maya was still awake. Drawing. Always drawing. The small desk lamp beside her flickered occasionally, but she ignored it. The yellow light cast soft shadows across the walls, which were covered with taped sketches, portraits, landscapes, and dreamlike cities that existed nowhere except in her imagination. Just one more, Maya whispered to herself. Her pencil moved faster. She was drawing the skyline of Shanghai, except it wasn't the real skyline. In her drawing, towering glass buildings twisted like ribbons into the sky. Floating gardens hung between them. Bridges curved like dragon tails across the clouds. It was the city she dreamed of creating one day. A city she might never see. Because dreams cost money. And Maya had none. The next morning, the city was already alive when Maya rushed to school. Her backpack was old and slightly torn, but she carried it carefully, as if it contained treasure. Inside were her sketchbooks. At school, her classmates talked about exams, college applications, and their parents' plans for their futures. "My father says I should study finance," one girl said proudly. "He already knows someone at a bank in Shanghai." Another boy laughed. "Finance? I'm going into tech. My uncle works at Alibaba." They turned to Maya. "What about you?" She hesitated. "Art school," she said quietly. The table went silent for a moment. Then someone laughed. "Art school? You mean painting?" Another student raised an eyebrow. "Do you know how hard that is to get into?" Maya nodded. She knew. In fact, the China Academy of Art in Hangzhou was one of the most competitive art schools in the country. Thousands applied every year. Only a few hundred were accepted. And tuition alone cost more than Maya's mother earned in an entire year. But Maya still said it. "I'll try." The others exchanged glances. Some smiled politely. Some looked amused. But none of them believed her. None except one person sitting quietly at the end of the table. Li Wei. Li Wei wasn't the type people noticed. He wore simple clothes, rarely spoke in class, and often left school immediately after lessons ended. Most students thought he was strange. But Maya knew he wasn't. They had grown up in the same neighborhood, two kids from families who worked too hard and slept too little. When they were younger, they used to sit on the apartment rooftop and talk about their dreams. Maya wanted to design cities. Li Wei wanted nothing specific. He never said. He always just listened. Now, as the other students laughed about art school, Li Wei simply looked at Maya and said, "You'll get in." The others laughed again. But Maya smiled. Because somehow, when Li Wei said something, it always felt like the truth. That afternoon, Maya stayed late in the school art room. Sunlight filtered through dusty windows while she worked on her portfolio. Her hands were stained with charcoal. Her back ached. But she didn't stop. Art school applications were only 2 months away. She had to make every piece perfect. As she leaned back to study a drawing, she noticed someone standing quietly in the doorway. "Li Wei. You're still here?" he asked. "Of course," Maya said. "Geniuses don't sleep." Li Wei smirked slightly. "You forgot to eat lunch." Maya froze. "How do you know that?" He placed a small plastic bag on the table. Inside were steamed buns from the street vendor outside the school. Her favorite. You always forget, he said. Maya laughed. You sound like my mom. But she ate them anyway. They sat quietly for a moment while she finished her drawing. Then Li Wei asked, how many pieces do you need for your portfolio? 20. How many do you have? 8. He nodded slowly. Then you'd better keep drawing. Weeks passed. Winter crept into the city, bringing cold winds and gray skies. Maya worked harder than ever. She woke early. She drew during lunch. She stayed in the art room until the janitor kicked her out. But even as her portfolio grew, another problem haunted her mind. Application fees. Travel expenses. Tuition. The numbers were impossible. One night, she sat at the small kitchen table with her mother. I might not apply, Maya said quietly. Her mother looked up from her bowl of noodles. Why? Maya forced a smile. It's expensive. Her mother's expression softened. Maya. But they both knew the truth. They could barely afford rent. Art school was a luxury they couldn't imagine. Maya stood up quickly. It's okay. I can study something else. Her mother didn't answer. Because they both knew Maya didn't mean it. Across the city, in a small internet cafe glowing with blue computer screens, Li Wei sat alone. He stared at a web page. China Academy of Art application portal. Below it were numbers. Fees. Deadlines. Tuition. His jaw tightened. He opened another tab. His bank account. The number was small. Very small. But it was something. Li Wei leaned back in his chair and thought about the rooftop years ago. About Maya pointing at the skyline and saying, one day I'll design buildings like that. Everyone else had laughed. But he hadn't. Because Maya never talked about dreams the way other people did. She talked about them like they were already real. Li Wei closed the banking page. Then he clicked another link. Anonymous payment portal. His finger hovered over the mouse. Then he clicked. A message appeared. Application fee paid successfully. Li Wei exhaled slowly. Just the first step, he murmured. Maya would never know. And that was exactly how he wanted it. That night, Maya checked her email. Her eyes widened. Mom. Her mother hurried over. What happened? Maya stared at the screen. I got a scholarship for the application fee. Her mother blinked in confusion. A scholarship? Maya nodded slowly. It says it's from an anonymous foundation supporting young artists. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Maya laughed in disbelief. Maybe I really am lucky. Across town, Li Wei sat on the roof of his building. The cold wind whipped through his hair as he looked at the city lights. For the first time in weeks, he felt calm. Maya would apply. Her dream would live a little longer. And that was enough. Even if she never knew the truth. Part 2, The Anonymous Scholarship. The email felt unreal. Maya read it 3 times. Then 5. Then she handed the phone to her mother. Look, it's real, right? Her mother adjusted her glasses and leaned closer to the screen. Anonymous Art Support Foundation, she read slowly. Application fee scholarship approved. Her mother frowned slightly. I've never heard of this foundation. Maya shrugged, half laughing. Maybe it's one of those small charity programs. Her mother looked thoughtful for a moment. Then she smiled. Well, whoever they are, they must believe in you. Maya stared at the email again. Her heart was beating faster. For the first time in weeks, the weight on her chest felt lighter. She could apply. The next morning, Maya burst into the school art room earlier than usual. Sunlight had barely begun to filter through the dusty windows. But she was already working. Her pencil moved quickly across the paper. Every line felt more confident. Because now, the dream was real again. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered about the mysterious foundation. Who would pay for a stranger's dream? Meanwhile, Li Wei stood inside a small motorcycle repair shop on the edge of the city. The smell of oil filled the air. The owner wiped his hands with a rag as he walked around the bike. It was an old black motorcycle, but it had been carefully maintained. "You're sure you want to sell it?" the owner asked. Li Wei nodded. "How much?" The man studied the bike one more time. "It's in good condition. I can give you 6,000 yuan. Li Wei didn't hesitate. "Deal." The owner raised an eyebrow. "You're not even going to negotiate?" Li Wei shook his head. "No need." He signed the papers quietly. As he handed over the keys, he felt a strange emptiness. That motorcycle had been his only luxury. He had spent 2 years saving for it. But now it was gone. And the money in his pocket already had a purpose. A week later, Maya finally submitted her application to the China Academy of Art. Her hands trembled slightly as she clicked the final button. Submit. For a moment, the screen froze. Then a confirmation message appeared. Application received. Maya leaned back in her chair. "Okay," she whispered. "It's done." But applying was only the beginning. The real challenge was the entrance exam. And that meant weeks of preparation. Every afternoon after school, Maya returned to the art room. Sometimes she stayed so late that the sky outside turned dark blue before she even noticed. And almost every evening, Li Wei appeared at the doorway. He never interrupted. He just watched quietly while she worked. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes he brought tea. Sometimes he just sat there, silently scrolling through his phone. But his presence was comforting. Like a quiet promise that she wasn't alone. One night, Maya finally asked. "Why are you always here?" Li Wei looked up. "You work better when someone reminds you to eat." Maya laughed. "That's not true." Right at that moment, her stomach growled loudly. Li Wei slid a box of dumplings across the table. "Eat." She rolled her eyes. But she ate them anyway. A month passed. Winter tightened its grip on the city. The day of the entrance exam arrived. Hundreds of students gathered outside the academy gates. Some had professional portfolios. Some had expensive art supplies. Some had parents standing beside them, giving last-minute encouragement. Maya arrived alone. Her backpack felt heavier than usual. But when she looked up at the tall gates of the academy, excitement sparkled in her eyes. "This is it," she whispered. From across the street, Li Wei watched quietly. He stood beside a vending machine, pretending to check his phone. He didn't want Maya to see him. This was her moment. Not his. The gates opened. Students began to walk inside. Maya took a deep breath and joined them. Li Wei stayed where he was until she disappeared into the crowd. Then he finally turned and walked away. 3 weeks later, Maya received another email. She stared at the subject line. China Academy of Art, admission result. Her hands started shaking. Her mother stood beside her, nervous. "Open it," she said softly. Maya clicked. The screen loaded. Then the words appeared. "Congratulations. You have been accepted." For a moment, the room was silent. Then Maya screamed. Her mother hugged her tightly, laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it." "I did it." They both looked at the screen again. Accepted. It felt impossible. But then Maya noticed something else. Another email attached to the acceptance letter. Financial aid notification. She opened it slowly. Her eyes widened. "Mom." "What?" Maya turned the phone toward her. "Full tuition scholarship." Her mother covered her mouth in shock. "Full." Maya nodded slowly. It says an anonymous sponsor selected me. Again. Another anonymous sponsor. Maya laughed in disbelief. Who keeps doing this? Her mother shook her head. Maybe someone who sees your talent. Maya leaned back against the couch. Her mind was spinning. Somewhere out there, a stranger believed in her dream. Enough to pay for it. That same night, Li Wei sat alone in his small rented room. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling. His laptop screen displayed a payment confirmation. China Academy of Art, tuition deposit complete. The number made his stomach twist. Almost all the money from the motorcycle was gone. But he stared at the receipt with quiet satisfaction. His phone buzzed. A message from Maya. I got in. He smiled slightly. Another message arrived. And I got a full scholarship. I don't know who helped me, but they're amazing. Li Wei typed slowly. You deserve it. A few seconds later, she replied. When I become famous, I'll find that sponsor and thank them. Li Wei looked at the screen. Then he whispered softly to the empty room. No need. Across the city, Maya stood on the rooftop of her apartment building. The same rooftop where she and Li Wei used to sit as kids. The wind was cold, but she didn't care. She looked at the skyline in the distance. Shanghai. Hangzhou. The cities she dreamed about. I'm going to make it, she whispered. And somewhere in the shadows of another building, Li Wei watched the same skyline. Knowing the hardest part was still ahead. Because tuition was only the beginning. And Maya's dream was going to cost much more than he had left. Part 3, The Price of a Dream. The first day at the China Academy of Art felt like stepping into another world. Tall glass buildings surrounded wide courtyards filled with sculptures and installations. Students walked past carrying large portfolios, cameras, or laptops. Some wore stylish clothes that looked like they came straight from fashion magazines. Maya stood near the entrance gate, clutching her sketchbook. For a moment, she felt small. Everyone here looked confident. Talented. Rich. She took a deep breath. I belong here, she whispered to herself. Then she walked inside. Art school was nothing like high school. The professors were strict. Critiques were brutal. Assignments were endless. During the first week, Maya spent 12 hours a day drawing, designing, and revising her work. But she loved every moment. She explored painting studios, digital design labs, and architecture workshops. Everywhere she looked, creativity filled the air. One afternoon during class critique, the professor stopped in front of Maya's work. He studied her drawing silently. The room felt tense. Finally he said, "Your ideas are interesting." Maya held her breath. "But your technique needs discipline." Some students snickered quietly. The professor continued. "You think like an architect but draw like a dreamer. If you want to survive here, you must learn to control both." Maya nodded seriously. "I understand." Inside, however, she felt a spark of determination. She would prove she belonged here. While Maya adjusted to her new life, Li Wei's world became much harder. Every morning he woke before sunrise. His first job started at 6 a.m. at a food delivery warehouse. He spent hours loading scooters with packages and organizing delivery routes. After that shift ended, he worked at a small electronics repair shop. Fixing phones. Replacing screens. Cleaning dust from laptops. Then at night, he worked part-time driving deliveries across the city. 3 jobs. Almost no sleep. But every month he quietly transferred money to the same anonymous scholarship account. Rent assistance. Studio fees. Art supplies. Every time Maya received help from the foundation, Li Wei received another bank notification. Balance, lower. Responsibility, higher. But he never complained. Meanwhile, Maya slowly began making friends. Her closest friend became Lin Xia. Lin Xiao was energetic, outspoken, and came from a wealthy family in Shanghai. "You're seriously talented," Lin Xiao said one afternoon while they worked in the design studio. Maya laughed. "Then why do professors keep destroying my work?" "Because that's what professors do." Lin Xiao leaned closer to Maya's sketchbook. "These buildings you draw, they're strange." "In a bad way?" "In a cool way." Maya smiled. "They're cities that don't exist yet." Lin Xiao tilted her head. "You always talk about the future like it's already real." Maya shrugged. "That's how dreams work." That night, Maya called Li Wei for the first time in weeks. He answered while sitting in the electronics shop after closing. "Hello? Li Wei." Her voice sounded bright. "How's art school?" he asked. "Amazing, and terrifying." He smiled slightly. "That sounds right." She told him everything. The professors. The studios. The giant sculptures in the courtyard. Then she laughed. "And guess what? That anonymous sponsor helped again. They paid for my studio materials." Li Wei stayed silent for a moment. "That's good." "I wish I knew who they were," Maya said. "I'd thank them every day." Li Wei looked at the cracked screen of a phone he was repairing. "Some people don't need thanks." Maya chuckled. "You sound mysterious." "Just focus on your work," he said. "I am." She paused. "Li Wei?" "Yeah? Thanks for always believing in me." For a moment, he couldn't speak. Finally he said quietly. "Always." Weeks turned into months. Spring arrived in Hangzhou. Trees on campus began blooming, and the air smelled fresh and warm. Maya's skills improved quickly. Her projects became more ambitious. More imaginative. During one architecture design class, the professor displayed Maya's concept on the large screen. "This," he said to the class, "is an example of bold thinking." Students leaned forward. The design showed a floating city park connected by suspended bridges. Solar panels curved like wings across the buildings. Gardens hung from vertical towers. The professor nodded slowly. "Not perfect, but visionary." Maya's heart raced. It was the first real praise she had received. After class, Lin Xiao slapped her shoulder. "See? I told you." Maya laughed. "Maybe I won't get kicked out after all." That same evening, Li Wei sat inside the repair shop, exhausted. He had barely slept the night before. The shop owner noticed. "You look terrible," the man said. Li Wei rubbed his eyes. "I'm fine." "You've been working too much." Li Wei didn't respond. The owner leaned against the counter. "You're young. Don't destroy your health for money." Li Wei stared at the floor. Then he said quietly. "It's not for money." The owner frowned. "Then why?" Li Wei looked at the small photo taped inside his wallet. It was an old photo from years ago. Two teenagers sitting on a rooftop. Maya holding a sketchbook. Him sitting beside her. He closed the wallet. For someone's future. Meanwhile, Maya continued chasing her dream without knowing the sacrifices happening behind the scenes. One afternoon she received exciting news. Her design project had been selected for a national student exhibition in Shanghai. When the professor announced it, the classroom erupted with whispers. Only 3 students were chosen. Maya was one of them. That night she called Li Wei again. "I'm going to Shanghai," she said excitedly. "That's great," he replied. "You should come see the exhibition." Li Wei hesitated. Shanghai travel wasn't cheap. But he didn't want to disappoint her. "I'll try." "Promise?" He looked at his nearly empty bank account. "I promise." Later that night, Li Wei sat alone in his small room again. He checked his bank balance. It was dangerously low. Rent was due soon. He sighed. Then he opened his laptop and searched for more work. Night delivery driver. Construction assistant. Warehouse labor. Anything. Because Maya's dream was growing bigger. And he had already decided long ago. No matter the cost, he would make sure it survived. Part 4, The Truth She Was Never Meant to Know. Shanghai was louder, brighter, and bigger than Maya had imagined. Skyscrapers stretched endlessly into the clouds, and the streets buzzed with millions of people chasing their own dreams. For Maya, this city felt like the future. The National Student Architecture Exhibition was being held inside a massive modern art museum near the river. Dozens of student designs filled the gallery. But one display attracted the most attention. A floating eco-city surrounded by vertical gardens and solar wings. The name beneath the model read, Chiang Mai, China Academy of Art. Visitors gathered around it, taking photos and discussing the concept. This is incredible, one architect murmured. The imagination is bold, another said. Maya stood quietly near the display, barely believing it was her work people were praising. Her professor approached her. You're receiving a lot of attention today. Maya smiled nervously. I didn't expect this. The professor nodded thoughtfully. Talent often surprises people. Then he pointed across the gallery. You may want to talk to him. A man in an expensive suit stood studying her design. He looked older, confident, the kind of person used to making important decisions. When he noticed Maya approaching, he smiled. You're the designer? Yes, she said. He extended his hand. My name is Zhang Wei. I run an architecture investment firm in Shanghai. Maya's eyes widened slightly. I like your vision, Zhang said. It's imaginative, but also practical. He glanced again at the model. You think like someone who wants to change cities. Maya laughed nervously. That's the dream. Zhang nodded slowly. Dreams need opportunity. He handed her a business card. When you graduate, come see me. Maya stared at the card after he walked away. Her future had just become bigger. Much bigger. Later that evening, Maya waited outside the museum. She checked her phone again. No messages. Where are you? She muttered. Li Wei had promised he would come. She had been looking through the crowd all afternoon. But he never appeared. After another hour, she sighed. Maybe he's busy. Still, disappointment lingered. At that exact moment, across the city, Li Wei sat in a hospital hallway. His head was bandaged. His arm was wrapped in a temporary sling. A doctor walked past him holding a clipboard. You were lucky, the doctor said. Working construction at night without proper rest is dangerous. Li Wei nodded quietly. Earlier that evening, exhaustion had finally caught up with him. He had fallen from a ladder at the construction site. Nothing life-threatening. But enough to send him to the hospital. His phone buzzed. A message from Maya. The exhibition was amazing today. Did you make it? Li Wei stared at the message. His chest tightened slightly. He typed slowly. Sorry. Something came up. Another message appeared. It's okay. I'll show you pictures later. He smiled faintly. Good. Months passed. Maya's success continued growing. Her designs were featured in magazines. Her professors recommended her for international programs. And the mysterious anonymous sponsor continued supporting her when needed. But eventually, something changed. One afternoon during her final year, Maya visited the school's financial office. She needed paperwork for a new scholarship application. The clerk typed on her computer for a moment. Then frowned. That's strange. What? Maya asked. The clerk looked confused. You already have a private sponsor covering most of your expenses. Yes, the Anonymous Foundation. The clerk shook her head. It's not a foundation. Maya's heart skipped. What do you mean? The clerk turned the monitor slightly. All payments come from a personal account. Maya leaned closer. Whose account? The clerk hesitated. I probably shouldn't show this. But curiosity won. She clicked one more screen. The name appeared. Li Wei. For a long moment, Maya couldn't breathe. That's impossible, she whispered. Her mind spun through every memory. The scholarships. The tuition payments. The materials. The rent assistance. All those years. All those sacrifices. Her hands started shaking. That evening she rushed across the city to the small electronics repair shop where Li Wei worked. The doorbell rang as she burst inside. Li Wei looked up from the counter. Maya? She stood there, breathless. Why? He froze. What? Her voice cracked. Why did you pay for everything? The shop went silent. Li Wei slowly set down the screwdriver in his hand. You weren't supposed to find out. Maya stepped closer, tears forming in her eyes. Years. Li Wei. Why would you do that? He looked away. It wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal, she repeated in disbelief. You sold your motorcycle. You worked 3 jobs. You got hurt. He said nothing. Finally she whispered. Why? Li Wei exhaled slowly. Then he looked at her. Because you believed in something. That's it? When everyone else thought it was impossible. His voice was calm. You never stopped believing. Maya's tears fell freely now. You could have told me. No, he said quietly. You would have refused the help. She knew he was right. So you just sacrificed everything? Li Wei shrugged slightly. Dreams are expensive. Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she asked the question she had been afraid to say. Why did my dream matter so much to you? Li Wei hesitated. For years he had kept the answer buried. But now there was no reason to hide it. Because, he said softly. I loved you. The words hung in the air. Maya's heart pounded. You loved me? Still do, he admitted. But that was never the point. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. Seeing you succeed was enough. Maya shook her head. You idiot. He blinked in confusion. What? She laughed through her tears. You really thought I'd just say thank you and walk away? Li Wei stared at her. I never expected anything. She stepped closer. Well, that's your problem. Before he could react, Maya hugged him tightly. You didn't just believe in my dream, she whispered. You made it possible. Li Wei stood frozen for a moment. Then slowly, he returned the hug. 2 years later, Shanghai's skyline welcomed a brand new architectural project. A futuristic eco-park surrounded by floating gardens and suspended walkways. The lead designer's name was displayed proudly at the entrance. Chen Maya. Standing beside her during the opening ceremony was a quiet man in a simple suit. Li Wei. A reporter asked Maya. What inspired your success? She smiled. Someone who believed in my dream before anyone else did. Then she looked at Li Wei. And someone who proved that sometimes the greatest support comes from the quietest people. The end.